All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. It is your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you live from it's not a new studio. I just got a new background. Thank you to Mr. Kevin Pratt of the KP Report for helping me out with that. It's something new. Anyways, we also going to do something else new tonight. I'm going to have my first guests on. I'm going to have Mr. Jason Alexander, Mr. Daniel Stewart. And the topic of hand is going to be the final episode of True Finale Season 4. Absolutely god-awful. So let's not have you waiting. Let's get their fellas into here. So let's go. And all right, all right, they're popping up on here, connecting. Waiting for Mr. Alexander and for Mr. Zoom user or Mr.
There we go.
Okay, we got some audio from Dan.
Let me see if something's going on with.
Okay, we got Jason. Welcome aboard, Jason.
Can I, I'm going to try to do it through my AirPods.
Yeah, you can do that. You sound fine. Welcome aboard, Jason. What do you got? Some Oreo action going on right there?
There we go.
All right, welcome aboard, Dan, Jason, Dan. Welcome aboard. You're here for a reason. Both good friends of mine, and seemingly big fans of the True Detective series, and people that make me laugh. And I need a good laugh after that horrifying experience. Got quite a few places to go. Dan, I feel terrible because I was watching that episode like a half an hour ahead of you. And I felt like I could have warned you, like in that horror movie where you want to be like, don't go around that corner. But I also wasn't sure when I'm watching this, I'm like, at what point did you start thinking the show was sucking?
Well, I was in a kind of a crossroads because I was like, hey, I just started it. You were like, text me when it's done. That could go either way. You know what I mean? That could be like, this is going to be fucking awesome, or it's going to be like what it was, unfortunately. So I thought it was going to be, honestly, it really started falling apart for me when nothing made sense. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's like nothing was tying in. But the moment for me when shit really hit the fan was when the scientist goes, time is a flat circle. And it had absolutely no relevance to anything that was going on, had nothing to do with, no tie-in to season 1 except for that line. It seemed forced. It was devastatingly bad for me. That's when I laughed out loud at that point because it was so bad. Not exaggerating. So that's when it took a dark turn.
Jason, when did the episode take a turn for you?
I mean, to be honest with you, I had already really turned on it because from the opening scene, because I was so like, Danvers there's never been a character that deserves to be more hated in a show ever. She's just a piece of shit. Like, she's just a piece of shit. There is nothing redeeming about her. And as the show kept on going, you kept on seeing just how big of a piece of shit she was. And at this point, I was hoping she'd get offed. But when I really truly went into just raw angry was when she fell in the water in a blizzard. Magically fine. Literally, that's what happened to the other people. And now you're going to fall in the fucking water and you're going to be dragged back in a blizzard and you can recover. Oh, by the way, hey, science lab, have a backup power generator. Like, what the fuck was that? Why did the power go out?
Well, they did, but when she was trying to fire it up, it only woke up a ghost. There was a little ghost sighting again, which, that was its own thing. By the way, the Salal lab right next to the entrance to the ice caves.
Yeah.
Because they were, I actually did a time. How long now? Maybe there were some lapses in their journey. How long do you think they were in the ice cave for before Clark, which, by the way, if they just never fell, that's another thing. I don't think they were ever going to be able to get out of the ice cave in the first place. But if they just never happen to fall into luck there, I get you got to speed things up a little bit because before I was even at the end of season episode 5, I was saying they're taking a massive swing here and it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be phenomenal or awful or no in between. And we know how we feel about it.
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking about how many holes are there in the show, there's almost too many to even count. So they got these computers which look like it looks like a 1998 computer lab down in the ice, but there's a tunnel, there's a staircase going into the lab. Like, why don't you have the samples in some kind of refrigerated thing up there? Why do you need the computers down there? Because
by the way,
it's
sorry,
just
I cut you off. My bad.
No, it's just stupid. And I'm actually getting upset just thinking about it. Like, nothing made sense. But go ahead.
It's
sorry.
also implying that Hank carried Annie K's body up that thing by himself. I mean, Hank, who's all but about 120 pounds soaking wet. And the worst part is you're not supposed to like Hank, but because of his character in Eastbound and Down, I can't dislike him.
Well, but so just to be clear, the indigenous woman, not a biologist. Let's just throw that out there.
Yes. Not disrespectful at all, by the way.
No. She had a job to do. And yet she looked at these highly technical paperwork and immediately figured out, oh, you know what? I got it, guys. It's really a hustle. Let me destroy it all. And by the way, just to be clear, to back up to your point, the only computers that had any evidence were located in the freezing cold basement of the cave. By the way, not a stable cave, a cave that's being created because of what it sounded like mine runoff. So you're storing the most important thing ever discovered in a ice cave? And there's no backups? You didn't email it to somebody?
Oh, by the way, but what's his face? Clark's also down there for a week and doesn't freeze to death. Well, I mean, he's up there because that's one thing that's at least revealed that was a little bit, as far as is it supernatural or is there an explanation for everything, was in the first episode when the supply guy gets there, which, by the way, I love that it's revealed that the supply guy actually still finished his delivery for an uninhabited laboratory because they're eating the Funyuns, a little callback there, and 11-day-old oranges that, in Alaska, which I'm sure are just fresh as can be. We'll touch on that in a minute. But that, he sees somebody running. Okay, it makes sense that Clark would have hung out there a little bit, knowing that the supply guy was coming. I mean, they do know that that's who would be there. I mean, I guess he's a little weirded out at that point, but at least it answered that scene in particular, I guess. That was one thing, I guess. I did a bunch of notes on this stuff. But let me get on my kid.
No, but I agree with the other co-host. There are so many holes. It's almost like even to verbalize a hole, it goes to another hole.
Well, how about the video itself does not even mirror remotely what happened in actual,
no, at all. And by the way, these are PhD, Stanford, Harvard, Yale level scientists. If us three, a bunch of jokers, we would do something dumb like that. Like, we would go into a rage. These are people who've thought their entire lives. They've lived in a book. They're not going to, hold on. Hey, everybody, hold this girl down while I stab her with a fucking screwdriver.
So as you know, I'm sure, like, in murder cases, anytime it's like a violent crime, they're like, this was overkill. This was personal. So you're telling me those eight renowned world, like, these are, like you said, Ivy League people. They don't just they don't strangle her out of rage. Everyone's cool with it. They're let's all sport. So what are the odds? They're all complete psychopaths at the same time. There's no way. As they were telling this story, it was supposed to be some like the viewers at home were going to be like, oh wow, it was embarrassing. I was like, wait, why? Did something make them go nuts? What? How does this? How is everyone cool? Everyone's on board with the absolute slaughter, overkill of this.
Let's go back even further on this one. So you mean to tell me that the origin story they want you to believe, by the way, that Clark and her ever got together, that's now where it's all centered around this whole thing, which, by the way, at some point during the show, I was like, are we trying to solve the Annie K murder or are we trying to solve the scientist's murder? Because, I know that it's a poor take according to the internet, but the people that you should probably feel the worst about are the 8 scientists. I guess they reveal at the end, but they were not really addressed during the show very well, as far as, they were just these soulless people. But Richard Clark apparently was a social butterfly on the side. He was able to. The story is that Annie comes with the one girl to cut their hair, and in one meeting, this Don Juan motherfucker, manages that. Why is their relationship a secret? Like, that's one of those things that the plot centers around, but it makes no sense why.
Why did he have okay, am I making this up in my head? I almost feel like it. Did he have a straw like a girl made up as like a scarecrow? Like when I saw that, I thought what is happening? Like, I mean, did he look like that's when I'm like, okay, this guy clearly lost his mind, which he clearly didn't do. He seemed very competent at times, but he made a straw mannequin.
You know what else made
Where
me
did he
laugh?
find straw?
Hey, oh my God. Oh my God. Where was homeboy getting his heroin from while he was in a fucking ice cave for like
Yeah.
2 weeks? Nobody
That's
knew where he was. He was living in a cave, but he was getting his for how long? He was like he was getting he had a heroin dealer that was willing to go to meet him. The dude's been wearing the same outfit for like years, and they're just like, where's he getting his money from? The guy had unlimited cash on. Like, how does that even fit in? It's like if somebody it's like it's like she had no clue about character development and lied in her interview. Like they were like, "So, do you have a good idea for this season?" She's like, "Oh yeah, it's good.
Well,
It's real good."
what's even better, by the way, was that the original plan to go into these ice caves was that he were going to get him all jazzed up on heroin, which, by the way, I would think that Otis is the only character in the show that I actually had any sympathy for.
100%.
Like, I
Yeah.
mean, he was just this guy who no real explanation as to what happened to him. He just woke up all mangled up one day. Apparently Annie spared him, if that's what you want the ending to believe, which we haven't even gotten there. Geez, this is gonna be longer than a half an hour, I think, guys.
I only have about a half hour, so
all
I
right,
it
mean,
could be 3 days long. Could be
but
3 days long with
yeah,
this shit.
this could go on for months. I mean, this
it's
is even, you know what? He just made me laugh so hard because I didn't even think about how fucked up that was because honestly, I was probably worried about something else fucked up.
well, and by the way, like the murder of the cop, by the way, it is amazing how is
What?
Jodie Foster the worst detective ever, by the
Yes.
way, because she has access to all this information that the cleaning crew had access to, and she's studying it over it. Maybe it was, she was a little bit too drunk, but again, the cleaning ladies, they must have a hell of a biology program at that neck of the woods there where the ladies reside, because they all just
By
instantly
the
decipher the notes.
the kid, the first off, the kid in episode shot his father, which
Full recovery.
anybody who's lost a parent, I know you have, Ryan, I did this summer. You,
Yeah.
I was wrecked for a week. Like I couldn't talk to people
Oh.
without bursting into tears. And this guy's just calmly gonna reestablish his relationship first off. Then
I'll clean it up.
and then he's gonna
I'll clean it up.
I got it. Don't worry. And then he's gonna drive off and then bury his dad. And by the way, there was no tears. This poor kid, what the hell's he doing?
I also forgot one of the most ridiculous things because when I rewatch it now with the explanations we have, so the one guy is still alive when they're cutting the thing up. Like they did that. The guy that ends up in the hospital, that guy's alive. And by the way, the other bodies, they're taking days to thaw out, but this guy is able to get up and form some last words. And
Yep.
and he, I mean, he's mostly concerned about she, nothing about the storming. Which hats off to the cleaning ladies. They must have did a hell of a cleanup job after they ambushed that place because there was no evidence that there was a fucking break-in. That was pretty epic, I must say.
Yeah. Zero forensic evidence.
None. By stabbing somebody with a what was it, a Starface screwdriver?
Which, like,
And by the way, what was with the indigenous woman clown house at the end when like 90 there it was, you know what it was? It was Custer. It was like Custer. They were coming in from every direction. I've never seen anything like that. I was laughing I was
Which,
laughing when they kept on coming in. There were 14 people. It's the day after Christmas. What are you guys playing? Is it game night?
oh, another thing I found out in my rewatch. So all of those riots that happened at the mine happened on Christmas Day, according to that story. Which another thing that's great too is that they just take a week off between like the days they post. It's Christmas Eve, then it's Christmas Day, then it cuts to New Year's Eve. And episode 5 and episode 6 both take place in the very, very first clip. It says the 17th day of night. Like, that was another one that just whenever you hold yourself mercy to a timeline, it's just one of those degree of difficulties. It's like a waiter not writing down your order. Like, if you pull it off, great, but I just feel better if you didn't have to be mercy to that.
Yeah, 100%. And the big secret was that this billion-dollar corporation, this billion-dollar private hedge fund company that's part of an umbrella, was paying the mine to fudge numbers about pollution. Like, so am I wrong though? Like, in the grand scheme of things, the mill was polluting the town, but like it.
You didn't know. So the mine's really getting a raw deal out of this because they're funding this research and also they're responsible for creating the pollution, was the way that it was explained. So
Okay.
the labs are just the benefactors. And by the way, they said that it had worked. So what were they going to act on any of this? You think they might have made an announcement or something about it, like, hey, it's working. Like, then they would have maybe been able to get a little more assistance on that. Hey, like, we can pay to move these people out of town even. I don't know. Which, by the way, also too, Jodie Foster, that people do know that her and Navarro did kill somebody. Now, granted, Navarro disappears off the face of the earth, but wouldn't Jodie Foster, maybe when the lady, who obviously she's bankrolling Connolly's mayoral race, and he knows that they covered up that murder, wouldn't any of this come back on her at all during that interrogation that they had of her, which the dumbest detectives ever?
So,
yeah. By the way, the captain from out of town, yeah, no shit that you should take over for the Enos Police Department. Like that was almost like written as if it was like this guy. Yes, you should 100% take over for Danvers.
Yeah, Danvers and her 3 coworkers.
Yes.
So, you know what else is that?
I can't believe we haven't gotten to the tongue yet. I mean, that's how crazy this is.
Dan, what do you think of the
tongue? The orange. What the fuck was that? Like, just unnecessary. I'd be like, okay, how much do you think she got paid to write this? How much was her contract? Because I can guarantee, Chat GPT or some run-of-the-mill $4 app on your phone could actually put together a more sensical and better thought out plot for a season. This is like someone who cheated or just winging it as they go. It was.
I almost think that she started from the end.
Oh,
she started with the idea of, I'm going to tell a story about indigenous women in Alaska. And by the way, they're treated horribly up there. It's awful. Go to a reservation. It's disgusting. And so I think she started from that premise and then just came up with like, we'll have a tongue. The tongue will talk about a spirit. And then she would go back further and come up with the next idea.
Which, by the way, the tongue, if you follow the story logically, which is hard to do and there's not much logic involved, is that if Hank moved the body, the guys didn't cut the tongue out. So Hank moves the body. So he would be, because they never announced to the people that her tongue was cut out. They left that detail out. They made that very clear in the episode when they were discussing this. So he would be the only one with the tongue. Now, the interpretation I heard from somebody is the tongue was left there to tell her story. Well, okay, unfortunately, I need a fucking reason how it got there.
Yeah, and so the tongue he cut out, just to recap, and he put it in the freezer because how long ago did this murder take place?
6 years ago.
Yeah, so he kept it for 6 years and then placed it on the floor later on or gave it to someone.
It's
and also they were able to tell the tongue was an indigenous woman within seconds.
I mean, like
they were like, that's the tongue of an indigenous person. You see those creases on the tongue? This thing's been frozen and thawed thawed out underneath a table, like a chip and snack table in a lab. And they're like, oh, that's an indigenous woman's. Now you got Ghost in the background. It was what a shit show. What
I
a
mean,
fucking
Danvers
crap.
does get around town. She might know the difference between an
She
indigenous
fucked
woman.
everybody. She fucked everybody. But hold on a second. She fucked everybody, like people from different states. And by the way, I actually Googled it. This was based in a town that's on the top coast of Alaska. And she said when she's like, I got Tinder, I got my range set to Fairbanks. That's like 800 miles from where it would be. So she was probably, they're insinuating she would travel from basically anyone within an 800-mile range she would fuck. And then hold on, the cop was ditching his newborn child and his wife every day for Danvers, and then killed his own blood father. No questions asked.
Yeah, no big
to save
deal.
her life, but they weren't fucking. So she fucked how does that work? Like, there's no story in there. They had more of a story with the daughter, and the daughter was like 15 and she had a lesbian lover. What is that even thrown in there?
Okay,
Like,
the 15-year-old, by the way, they might understand that's not the kid that cried in the background, right? Like, do you remember when they finally showed the scene where Danvers and her shoot that guy and you hear the baby in the background?
yeah.
Please, this show's
Oh
not
my God, I
competent,
never
right?
even thought about that.
I didn't even put it together.
How could you in the madness of this? But also to Danvers.
No. I think that she was her original husband's, like, I think that she was her stepmother or
What
something.
a piece of shit. Like, be nice to the kid.
Yeah,
Try to do nice things. It lost his father and her brother. Like, Danvers is that cold of a person.
So the other thing too the twist and shout makes no sense whatsoever, because I watched it back. She does go back to the Salal thing. So maybe Clark just, random enough they're watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but and they have a DVD player that works in this high tech facility. That's good for them. But how is it that it was kept playing? Like, that just made no sense whatsoever, because again, it's just. So what ended up happening, finding out with the origin of this, is that apparently Lopez wrote this as its own story, and then HBO said, how about we brand it as True Detective? And I think that this was the only way. Like, people are talking about this as the highest rated show, and it's like, yes, because you're piggybacking off of one of the best series of television ever.
Yeah, it's got the most views, but that's because nobody that watched this show was doing so because they were excited for its own entity. It's all for, like, this is the equivalent of, like, if somebody beside Vince wrote Breaking Bad a season and everyone tuned in, and at the end were like, that was the worst series of television I've ever seen, they'd be like, it got the highest rating because everyone's waiting for it to make sense and be good, and it never did.
The only thing that you can say is I enjoyed the first 2 episodes.
Me too.
I liked, at that point, I was like, oh, this could be good. And then when it delved into mysticism, I actually just thought that it was going to naturally go into mysticism or a horror film to a certain extent.
It's turned into a horror
film. I would have been on board.
Turned into because when you watch it the first time, it felt like a good one, and then it turned into a horror film for all the wrong reasons. Like, I don't know. It was because at least though, other shows have had bad last episodes, but at least you had enough of a good time. I think because I had just lost. I looked more forward to this finale than I looked forward to the Super Bowl, and yeah, it was very early on. You can't leave a finale with more questions. And I love how Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it a 93 and the audience gave it a 60. IMDb had it rated as the lowest episode of the entire season, or the entire series, which season 2, there's some rough episodes in the season 2, and I really don't even remember watching season 3, but you can't have the thing that's supposed to tie this all together be the worst episode they've ever had.
It was really the most incompetent, one of the most incompetent things I can ever remember. I would actually say for me, a Star Wars nerd, it's The Last Jedi of Star Wars, where all of a sudden, like, everything you've known for like the entire thing just changes overnight, and you're supposed to just get along with it. And it was just like, it was just incompetent top to bottom. Like, there was so little, characters have to make you be interested in them. And as it went along, I just kept on finding myself like, these people are, there's nothing to be interested in. I'm not rooting for anybody. I don't even care whose tongue it is at this point. And it just kind of took me on this weirdo journey where I'm like lost. I don't, I knew you want to know when I knew I was in trouble? It was episode 2 at the end. And then I think it was episode 3 where all of a sudden they were having a search party go out to look for somebody. And I looked at my girlfriend and I went, who the fuck are they looking for? Like, I have no clue who they're looking for.
They were looking for Clark.
Yeah, but they didn't tell me.
He meant nothing at the time.
Yeah. But that was when I went, oh shit, they didn't, I normally can keep a track of a show and I'm already fucking lost. I don't even know who the main suspect is, you know?
Yeah, it was really bad. It was I haven't, like, it really, like, it pissed me off, like, to the point where, like, I had, like, 3 weeks ago, I told a coworker, I was like, hey, did you like True Detective? And he's like, loved season 1, one of the best seasons ever. I said, well, there's a new True Detective out. He's like, yeah, I haven't started it yet. Immediately after the finale, I wrote him, I was like, hey, don't stop. If you've started, stop, save yourself. And he's like, I haven't started yet. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, what if it was a spoiler? And I was like, wouldn't matter. I would have saved you. Reddit is a gold mine for people. And it's like, you can always tell the profiles that are like all about it. You know what I mean? Someone will be like, I thought it was phenomenal. Best season yet. I'm like, you're lying, or you're just a contrarian. Is that you don't like the majority of guys, that you like what it was supposed to be, not what it is. If that makes any sense.
No, it does.
I almost lost a sale, or I was actually willing to lose a sale, I must say. At the end of it, I somehow got into the conversations. I had been talking before with the person how we were looking forward to the final episode. And then I asked him at the very end what he thought. And he said, oh, I loved it. And like, given the reaction that apparently you're the worst human being ever if you didn't like that episode, like, it doesn't help that we're 3 white guys on here, that like, that's the whole thing. Oh, obviously we didn't. Like, I like that. That's the way that it's deflect criticism now. It's just that, well, of course you didn't. Like, it wasn't for you, kind of like, well, kind of a lot of us.
Yeah. I mean, no, yeah, I think this, this was really, you know, I just think they started with, they wanted to tell a story about a female driven character and an ending that was revenge by females. And then as they backed up, I don't think it was she started from the beginning and wrote, I'm going to write a crime story out here. I'm going to start with an ending and then just make up stuff backwards. I mean, that's the only way that this makes sense. She had to have taken high school English to know that you have to start at the beginning and have like a coherent thread. And for her to lose it that bad, it really must have been like, oh, we need to hand it off to a female director and then we go from there. But like there was no story, there was no nothing. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. It's like, like at this point, the only thing that would redeem it for me is, did you hear they get renewed for another season? And she's doing it?
Yep. They have to double down.
The only thing, like, I'm going to start writing like emails to Pizza Lotto and be like, well, like, what we got to figure out. The only thing that could redeem it is if it picks up right in the fucking middle of the tundra.
Yeah.
And then Rust and Marty show up and we're like, we got to make this look real, Marty, and just blow everybody fucking away.
No, you know what the thing is that
you go off on some kind of weird bender. I don't know, but something's got to change.
I'm going to end up watching it because I'm going to be fucking now. Like, it's like, you can't not watch the car crash. Like, you have to give it another shot, which again, that's the whole thing of that. This one piggybacked and got a lot of interest with the season 1. There's no other reason. Like, I listened to some interviews with Lopez. She said that she wanted to show that these two things existed in the same universe. That's why there was the connection to Travis Cole. But other than that, like, you can't have the father of the most prominent character of the reason that this show was even going. and it's just a weird coincidence. And I thought of another thing a little closer is that the scientists drink Lone Star. You mean to tell me that Lone Star, which I'm going to assume that by the time Rust was at that level of his condition, he was drinking the cheap sixer. So the cheap sixer down in the bayou is also readily available to Ivy League scientists in the lab, and that's their brew of choice. They're not. I mean, that was just a picking nits.
Now that wasn't also a dinosaur shaped, and the top of the thing, like that spiral, that wasn't bones, right?
Look, never mind that the Tuttles from season 1 were bankrolling the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was like put there so that like they thought fans would have like that soy jack meme face and be like, oh, there it is. But they had no understanding of why people like season 1. None. They had no idea the concept, the whole like the time is a flat circle was just like that was a line in a whole spew of
It wasn't Rust's line.
relative things. It was brilliant writing. This is not this was like I'm kind of offended that I even like sat through and like she would do this and she doesn't care. She doesn't care about the audience. She must have gone in there knowing that not one person that liked the series was going to like this.
Well,
and then she has the buffer. She has the convenience saying, oh, well, you don't like it because it's too female. It's too strong female detective. And that's not even why. If that was the reason why I wasn't going to like it, I wouldn't have fucking watched it. So, I knew the cast.
So she said her point of it when I listened to an interview was that she wanted, and the reason that the cleaning ladies were the ones is that, I watched it back and they do this. There's a couple times where they frame in on them in the background. And the whole thing wants to be that these marginalized people we don't pay attention to, and we don't think they're capable. It's like kind of that whole thing of that, we pretend they don't exist. And I mean, yes, me being in upstate New York, it's very convenient for me that, I'm in one of the areas of upstate New York that we're not really near reservations. I mean, I'm oblivious to all of that, but in this story, you're the one that made them fairly irrelevant. It's like, yes, all of those people have a job in the town or whatever, which again, like it's hilarious to me that Danvers actually interviews one of, Beatrice, I guess her name was, and she's actually the one that did it. But,
but wasn't the 3-finger thing in different episodes, like the clue of the 3 fingers?
Yeah, because that girl, the whole introduction to her is that Navarro goes to see her because her boyfriend had showed up at her work and the B girls had assaulted her. So she's just really got a rampageous attitude. I mean, she just led a mob 3 days before. And then, now she's just, smacking up this guy. She has no fear in the world.
And the idea that would be because when the 3-finger thing happened, I literally at that point I think I was already going through the motions of blocking out all that I'd watched. And like they both looked at each other like they cracked the case. And it was like, what?
Well,
am I supposed to remember that?
I got 1 minute or 2 minutes, a couple minutes left here to record, but again, maybe that ice bath just woke her up. Maybe that was the whole point of that.
Yeah. Can I say one thing before you make your piece here?
Yes.
I think First Nations and Native Americans should be furious everywhere because there's so many cooler ways to portray. Like if you wanted that to be part of the story, you didn't. It was terrible writing. It was terrible writing and shitty lame characters. There could be so much more. And it's like, forget it. Like, but they're trying to make that as like kind of a buffer. Like if you say this sucks, it's because you're a misogynistic white guy or whatever, when it was really just terrible. It was terrible. And they're trying to like hide behind immunity with the writing. Like a lot of females are saying that. They'll be like, oh, well, of course you don't like it. Like Ryan was saying. It's like, yeah, I genuinely don't like it because it was terrible. It was awful writing. That's all I'm saying.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for discussing. I got to maybe upgrade to the pro so I can go longer than 40 minutes, which again, we could have gone forever, but lovely chat with you fellas. It's nice to hear voices. I knew that I could hear the rage in Dan's voice on this one because
I'm sorry.
I love it. Like, but you and I have been texting about this for 5 weeks in anticipation and then just blew up in our face.
Yeah, I blocked it out during work. I'm like, I can't talk about this. It's not because of work. I can't get worked up about it. But Jason, it was nice meeting you, man.
Nice meeting you too, sir.
All right, nice meeting you, fellas. Thank you for coming on to the Scho-Zone. It was nice having some guests. Maybe we'll have these guys on again. It's going to start being some baseball talk, but that's it for today, gentlemen.
Later,
fellas.